Hi, this is Judith Paquette, and this video is on correcting journal entries, a supplement, or how to fix, repair, undo mistakes in journal entries. Now, there will come a time where you make a mistake as an accountant, if you're an accountant, and the question is, what happens? How do you correct it? This video will provide 5 example journal entries with errors, and I will discuss how to make the correcting journal entry. You should be able to correct any type of journal entry error using these 5 examples. So the method that we're going to demonstrate today is, first you got to identify the erroneous journal entry. Then of course you must fix the error. So first you identify your error and then you create the correct journal entry. Now, it's really important that you understand that this correct journal entry is only for your reference. What you're going to be creating eventually and recording is a correction journal entry, and this correction journal entry is going to combine reversing any errors and the correct journal entry. So let's do an example. Hermes Company booked a collection of cash on account. This was a collection from a customer who paid an invoice that was due. Hermes debited cash and credited service revenue. Now we know that service revenue is not the correct account. What is the correct account? Correct account is accounts receivable. They should have booked debit cash, credit accounts receivable. So they got the cash part correct, but the accounts receivable they did not book. And again, this is only for reference. You're not booking this entry. This is what you should have booked. Now we have to correct this error. So the correcting journal entry is going to reverse debit service revenue and credit accounts receivable. So let's take another look at that error. This is the error right here. It's a credit to service revenue. So our correcting journal entry is going to reverse that error, debit service revenue. And we're going to book it to the correct account, which is to reduce accounts receivable because the customer paid. Let's do another one. On December 5th, Hermes Company purchased a truck for $45,000, but they recorded it as $4,500. So this is an error of the wrong amount. The correct entry should have been debit equipment, credit accounts payable, which they did do, for the full amount. Now again, this is just for reference. Do not book this entry. We want to book the adjustment. So the adjustment is to book an additional $40,500 to both of these accounts. So here we go. Debit equipment, credit accounts payable. Again, let's take another look at that error. The combination of the $4,500 in the first journal entry and the $40,500 in the correction journal entry will correctly bring that journal entry to $45,000, and that's where we want to be. Now, third example. We've got wrong accounts, and actually we've got wrong amounts here too. Hermes Company recorded a credit card sale for $1,000. The credit card company charged 3% of the $1,000, which is $30, as a service charge. Now we know from the textbook that credit card sales are treated as cash sales. So the entry should have been debit to cash, debit to service charge expense, and credit to sales. Quite a bit different. So how do we get from this error to this correct journal entry with one journal entry? So I'm going to put the original error up right away so you can, there's so many accounts, I want you to see them. So accounts receivable is an error, sales discounts is an error, and the dollar amounts are also errors. So the first thing I'm going to do is reverse sales discounts by debiting it. It was credit in the first journal, I'm going to reverse that. I'm going to credit accounts receivable, that's just a complete error. It was debited here, so I'm going to reverse it. And now I want to get cash, which will be debited at the reduced amount. Remember, we had a service charge. So we're going to debit service charge expense for the $30. And sales should be credited for $1,000. So I'm going to add another $30 to the sales account. And one of the best ways to take this journal entry is to post all of these to T accounts, and then you'll see that the ending balance ends up equal to the ending balances here. So if we just look at sales, we had a credit of $970. We need it to be $1,000. So we're adding another 30 here, and that brings the credit to sales to 1,000. And that's probably one of the more complicated correcting journal entries. All right, let's do another one. Wrong amount again. Hermes Company booked an adjusting entry incorrectly. The supplies account had a beginning balance of $350. During the month, an additional $700 of supplies was purchased. The ending balance in supplies was $400. They booked, the accounts are correct, debit supplies expense, credit supplies, but the amount is incorrect. And perhaps the best way to illustrate that is to go back to using the T accounts here. Beginning balance of $350, additional purchase of $700, ending balance of $400. To make that balance, we needed a credit to supplies of $650, not $350. So the entry should have been debit supplies expense $650, credit supplies $650. So our correcting journal entry is to add another $300 to the supplies account. And again, the combination of these two will serve as eventually $350 plus $300 will debit supplies expense for $650 and credit supplies for $650. Finally, our last example is when you flip accounts. And I'd like to say that nobody ever does this in practice, but in fact, occasionally we flip accounts. So similar problem, supplies. I'm using slightly different numbers. October 31st, Hermes Company booked an adjusting entry. The supplies account had a beginning balance of $350. During the month, an additional $800 of supplies was purchased, and the ending balance in supplies was $400. All right. So what entry should they have booked? Well, they just flipped this. It should be a debit to supplies expense, not a debit to supplies. It should be a credit to supplies, not a credit to supplies expense. So how do we fix this error? So by reversing the entry, we bring it back to 0, and then we have to book it correctly. So we're going to debit supplies expense for double the $750 and credit supplies for double the $750. So let's take a look. Our first entry had a credit balance in supplies. Our second entry has a debit balance of $1,500. The combined effect of these two journal entries is a debit of $750 to supplies expense and a credit of $750 to supplies. And that's the combined effect of the error and the correction. So those are our 5 examples. And remember, you're only required to do the correcting journal entry. You don't book the reversal of the bad entry. You don't rebook the correct entry. You do one big correcting journal entry that takes into account both the reversal of the error and a correcting journal entry. This ends our video. Goodbye and good luck.